what would be possible if millions of us, in a very focused way, held the positive vision. Because right now, all we have is negativity and division wanting to continue to manifest itself, and people who really want something different saying no to the negativity. And so all the focus is in that band. And I see a huge opportunity for the mental focus of the collective to shift and focus on that which is wanted and needed. And it feels hard because it's like we need to keep our focus on something that's not there yet. And I think there's this gravitational pull to focus our attention on the current whirlwind. But how are we going to get there if no one is standing there, first in their mind and then physically, as it manifests itself?
Well, you know, there's two aspects of this. So let's say every one of us, if you collected 2 million people and they focused on the qualities of the politician they want to vote for. They're not looking for perfection. They're just going to talk about them in a positive way. Nothing negative. Okay? Nothing negative. I go, as soon as Kamala was the nominee, it was like, oh my God, it all started all over again, like Hillary Clinton. I used to say, stop. You are creating a sustainable momentum of negative energy against a person you are actually going to vote for. Now, the opposition can do that quite well. So the rest of us need to really start thinking, what's my awareness in this moment? I only want to focus on and talk about what I'm for. Let's say right now, the issues and the candidate, let the rest go. Be aware of what's going on. Don't discuss it because you're giving energy to it. You actually give energy to what you don't want. That's what I call as consciousness. Does this make sense? The second thing is you're a meditator. What would happen if you brought together 2 million people who were meditating on a common vision? You know what? That's how you build sustainable momentum. One by one, you bring them together. And they have to believe that they are making a difference as an individual and the collective. It's not just you alone. It's the collective consciousness.
I mean, it just keeps going back, Rita, to you matter.
Yes, if you don't think you matter, you don't take action. You have to believe you matter, and everyone does matter. Everyone has a unique gift and talent. Everyone deserves to thrive and flourish and prosper. It has nothing to do with your color, your sex, gender, anything, or what country you came from.
You know, I used to row crew, and we would be in a boat of 8 people. To win the race, you have to pull every stroke as hard as you can. And you put so much strength and effort, and there's a lot of pain involved. And there's that feeling where I'll just loosen up on this one stroke and relax because no one's going to notice. And I'll let the other people do the work. But if everyone does that 2%, the boat slows down by 2 times 8. Everyone does that 5%, the boat slows down by 5 times 8, etc. Right? And we end up kind of in a tragedy of the commons type of situation. So what does it mean when I am responsible for the collective? I place myself in that place of power and of responsibility, and not other people are going to do it.
So it comes back to those four qualities I originally talked about. Are you going to stand in your power? Do you believe you're responsible and you can make a difference? Are you going to trust your inner self and take the risk and move into something new? And will you have the courage to make the commitment to follow through? All of humanity is interconnected. And we're all creating either for something or against something. But it's our consciousness. And that's what's going on between for or against. Are we for light? Are we for care? Are we for love? Are we for compassion? Are we for fear, anger, violence, rage? That's what's happening.
Right. And are we for, or even if, are we for division? Are we for aggression? Or even are we against division? Are we against aggression?
I don't talk about ever against. I'm not against anything. I don't
Right.
even
So,
talk about the people I'm against. If I was even, quote, against, they're not in my consciousness. I'm aware of what they're doing. I know their actions, but I'm not going to give my thought to it other than discernment. And I'm certainly not going to talk about them.
so Rita, let's say we were to do a graph. Okay. Um, so I'm just going to do it here with the screen.
Yes.
So imagine that down here, these are aspects of division and aggression and um, power over, things like that. So, and then up here is interconnection, mutual support, full expression by everyone in ways where
Fairness,
people are seen and
inclusion.
understood, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance, all of the words in those principles, right? Courage,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance, true
Yes.
power, etc. So what's fascinating is, and we were talking about in politics, we were talking about the issue areas, right? Healthcare, education, whatever, from a, you know, policies from a left or a right political side. And in this
Mm-hmm.
case, you would consider these to be almost like issue areas related to maybe the emotional or relational side of our human experience. So that's one band, and here's another band, right? And usually all we focus on are those bands, which is I care about this, right? This would be my side, right? I care about this, and I feel division, separation, aggression, etc., right? If I'm going to be honest, those aspects of myself that I haven't cleaned up, right? Preferably I'm conscious of them rather than unconsciously running these things, acting righteous, right? And imagining myself as some kind of a holier than thou, right? Ironically, I'm acting in these ways as I'm opposing them. So I'm feeling these issue areas towards them, right? And so, and as we talked about, the energy gets focused here. So what happens when, oh, I have to do it differently. So the point is I have quadrants, okay? So let me do that again, the bottom and the top, and then I'm gonna do left and right. So this is all about division and aggression, etc. And this is all about unity and safety and care, etc. So then you have the verticals, which are for and against, right? So there are people who are for unity and there are people who are for division, right? There are people who are against unity and there are people who are against division. And basically each person is taking up a diagonal. You're either here or you're here, right? And the point is, from everything that we're saying, to drop half of your stance. To drop, I'm for unity and I'm against separation, and to drop this location and to only stay here.
Yes.
It sounds obvious, but it's not happening. and again, I don't even want to speak to it that way, right? Because if I say it's not happening, then I just did that. I just focused on the lack, on the scarcity. And so instead, it's that nuanced, right? Where I can notice myself, okay, another way of saying that would be there's such an opportunity to coalesce or focus. There is so much space awaiting us that we haven't taken up yet in that regard. That's available to us.
That's true. But it all comes down to this. Are you willing to transform yourself to transform the world? Because the world, the outer world, is a reflection of our inner world. So in the meantime, while I'm working in the outer world to improve the world or move it in a certain direction that I believe in, I'm also working on myself internally. But I always look at, when I work with people for decades, I'd always come back and say, how can I simplify this? What if I put out, we have a strategy within an organization that when we get together every week, we're going to focus on and appreciate all the things that are working. And that's what we do throughout the day. We talk about what is working. We're so appreciative. We have little mini celebrations, joy, whatever. We know what's not working. We just don't give energy, thought process, and words to it. Okay? And we start building this whole energy field up here of awareness, of appreciation, and joy, and harmony. Okay? And everybody's participating in it, and everybody's happy about it because it's individual and collective. What do you think happens when you do this to the bottom layer of division, fear, resistance? It naturally dissipates. So that's what I'm talking about. How do you naturally move something to dissipate? By elevating the consciousness up here. And if you sustain it long enough and you bring along millions of people and they sustain it, it transforms the world. So my whole thing was, let's say every single day in America, in every single organization, school system, whatever, throughout the day, little moments, lunch, morning, lunch, before we head off to home and in at home, we just take a minute and do appreciation. What do you think the transformative impact would be? The power of our thoughts.
And
That's
the gravitational pull, right? That a negative thought might have, let's say, 9 times more gravitational pull.
Well, think about this. The vast abuse of power in this country alone, and that's just not in politics. We're talking individual businesses, organizations, whatever. Whether it's unethical behavior, whether it's greed, corruption, that's all abuse of power, violence, rage. That is a huge energy field. And it is an intense energy field. It takes enormous amount of positive energy, and that's what you're talking about, to turn that field around into the atmosphere up here that we're talking about, the awareness, the consciousness, inclusion, appreciation, gratitude, care about people, equality of people. It takes every single person. It's like what Churchill knew in England. I have to one by one bring people along until everyone starts believing deep in their heart that they're capable of victory and saving their democracy against fascism, against Hitler. And you know, history just keeps repeating itself. But I understand, if you listen to the news every day, your mind is being hijacked. Because how much of the news is focusing on what's working in the world, what we can appreciate in the world, and how well we're actually doing in the midst of all the crisis and the destruction and the people suffering. It's all about the negative, basically. So after a while, we believe this is the world, that this is all the world can be. I don't have the power within me to make a difference. And we've been hijacked. And the powers, there are powers to be that want to hijack your mind. This is on purpose. This is programming of your subconscious. This is taking over your critical thinking skills because you basically lose them. Now you're just autopilot. That was my intent if I'm into fear and division, is to take over your thinking capacity and your awareness and your consciousness and your character. I want to take it away from you. So the choice is, do we allow that? Do we become aware of it? And do we take a stand for who we really are? You notice I didn't say against. Take a stand for the blueprint, the imprint that is really you. You are courageous, you are wise, you do have integrity, you do have creativity, compassion. You can be accepting instead of judgmental. You can have humility. You can live with harmony and inner peace. All of those qualities plus more. It is who you are, and social science, psychology, all the different sciences have already proven that is our natural order of who we are. It is not the survival of the fittest.
It's so wild, right? Because, we're talking about the election, we're talking about something so logistical, so institutional, so out there looking. And at the end of the day, we get back to, who am I?
Right. Because what are you voting for? What you think, what are you voting for against yourself, basically? It always comes back to yourself. Your values, your character, your worldview, your consciousness, how you see the world. Issues are secondary because they're all behind the consciousness, the worldview, the character, the values, your philosophy. We just think it's issues and that we're right and you're wrong.
We can stay in that one for a very long time.
Yes. Until you turn the tide in the other direction, it's going to keep on building the abuse of power and fear. That's where we are. That's why people feel discouraged, disheartened, and disappointed.
Another thing, Rita, is for us also to remember, which gives more hope and more patience, that evolution happens with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, which becomes the new thesis.
Yes.
That there's a spiral, like a double helix, you could say, as evolution happens, that light will bring forth the dark that hasn't yet become resolved, and realizing it doesn't mean that we've fallen, that we've fallen back as if it were a linear path, right? And everything is failure and whatever, but understanding the non-linear, natural ebbs and flows.
You have to expose and bring up to the surface what is not working and be willing to let go of it and release it. So if you look at what's going on in the world, why we're in this great crisis, because many issues haven't been resolved and haven't been working. It's what in psychology they call your shadow side. So the shadow side is being exposed, whether we call it the violence, the greed, the corruption. Every day you hear about something, you go, no, that couldn't have happened, but it did. And it's been happening. This isn't recent. So the shadows all being exposed. Mother Nature is saying, I've had enough. You don't respect that you have oxygen and air. You don't respect that you have food. You don't respect the soil, so you pollute it. Well, I'm just going to take everything away from you and see if you can ever reach within your heart and start appreciating anything. You've taken everything for granted and you feel entitled. Some more entitled than others. So that is the shadow. And now everything is pulling apart and we're seeing, okay? Because no one transforms until you can recognize what hasn't been working and own it and accept responsibility for becoming complicit in creating it. And we all are complicit. And only then can you turn it around.
Right. And that self-compassion that's necessary to overcome what otherwise is shame, which is so painful to fear, that gets rerouted into blame,
right?
Which is easier to feel. And then we're blocked off from the healing process.
See, but the principle of responsibility is no blame, no excuses, no justifications, no complaining. Those are all the shadow side. We move to the other side. I'm complicit, I'm responsible, I can't have integrity, I am going to honor myself, I am going to honor Mother Nature, I am going to honor other people. I have that capacity. I'm going to decide to be for all that. It's all in my mind what I choose.
And what's wild, Rita, when I hear you say that, is it's not just it gets to the core, I'm going to be. There's, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be this. And then it's like,
Mhm.
wow, it's actually finally, I'm going to be.
Because that is who you are. That is the be.
And there's so much self-negation at a level that is so unconscious that it might be confusing to hear me say this. Maybe some people are hearing me say this and like, what do you mean? It's like there's so much dimming of ourselves, you know? Um, and so everything you're saying, it's like showing up within ourselves, showing up to ourselves, showing up to what we carry, to who we are and what we're able to give, to what we know is possible, and to taking action for that.
Yes, that was brilliant. So it all comes down to self-value and self-worth. If you really valued yourself and you thought you were worthy, how would you treat yourself? How would you treat anyone else?
And it's literally brilliant. It's literally light shining.
Yes.
And
And we all are light underneath the soot, which I say we have on us, or the dirt.
what's wild is like, we all have such conditioning around of that soot, right?
Yeah.
Saying, oh, I'm not ready yet. Oh, but you know, the perfectionism, or oh, I'm not trained well enough for this, or oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or oh, someone else. And there's that fire where we don't have time for that anymore, where the need is so present that any personal excuses or personal self-sabotage, there's just no time for that anymore.
You're absolutely right. Now we're down to life and death. Which you're
how
going to choose?
how much more suffering needs to happen?
I don't know. We will find out because it's going to continue on until we wake up.
Another thing worth noting, Rita, is really acknowledging the emotional vulnerability and the emotional messiness of this whole process within the self. How it doesn't look glamorous. This seeing and meeting all of this shadow side, as you named it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's something around our capitalist kind of, the marketing and branding type of culture that we're in, where you only see things that are shiny and ready made, and you don't see the back end process of anything. And some aspect of self judgment, or thinking that something is wrong with us, or expecting it to be easier because of that, because of not being shown the natural vulnerable messiness that is any process of change and growth, and really allowing ourselves to be and look vulnerable, both for ourselves and in our relationships, that will create that greater depth in our relationships too.
And then if you are that, you want to move in that direction, you could do that individually, and at the same time surround yourself with people who are moving in that direction too. So you're a collective again with a common vision, a common collaborative group, because it helps. Now you're all moving in a similar direction, but you have your own individual issues. Because
Right.
we're all vulnerable. We're all going to be even more vulnerable. We all have deep healing to do, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And Mother Nature is trying to heal. We're all in the process together. It's just a matter of we going to recognize it, and now what are you going to do about it? And it's risky. It's unknown. It's uncertain. Clue what the world will look like tomorrow, because there's always dynamic change taking place. So now, can I be comfortable and feel safe and protected in that vulnerability? And that comes from, we're talking about coming back inside. Yes, you can.
I hear sometimes like, okay, but what are we going to do about it? Okay, but that's, there's this separation I feel like this is one of the original wounds that holds us back so much, is a separation between the inner experience and the outer experience, and an
Mhm.
expectation that the inner experience doesn't relate to or isn't relevant to or important enough with
Mhm.
regards to the outer experience. It's almost like, oh, that's a waste of time, or that's self-focused, or, oh, but that's not actually doing anything, you know? And instead, when we don't change the foundation, the outer focus change that we're actually seeking, right?
Mhm.
That negation is actually seeking. It's like, I want the outer change faster. I want to focus 100% on the outer
Mhm.
change. Like, but that division, that cut between inner and outer will actually, it's like removing the roots, wanting a flower to grow and you just cut the roots off and then it's not taking anything from the soil anymore.
Right. And so why do you think people don't want to admit to that? There's one basic reason.
Go ahead.
What do you think?
Why do I think people make that cut?
Yeah, why do I not want
I
to
think it's
recognize that
easier
my outer world is connected to my inner world and I'm actually creating
because
the
then we
world?
would have to take responsibility.
Absolutely. I would have to take responsibility and own my power to create something else. I'd have to actually step into integrity with myself and honor myself and admit what I'm actually doing. Not through recrimination, not through guilt, shame, or anything. It's just that, okay, I'm now aware I wasn't aware before. So I will accept that I have this capacity. And I will take action because I'm responsible. And everybody's not treated equally and everybody does not have equal opportunity. I'm still going to take action. I recognize that too. I think the final thought is about our heart. We've been a culture that's so trained that our mind is what is guiding us. And really, it's our heart. And this has been proven by Heart Math Institute that our heart has far more power than our mind. And the heart is sending the signals to our mind and our head and our brain. And we really need to look inside and how to heal all our hearts. And there are different methodologies, but that's not what it's about. It's just knowing the power of your heart. And heart coherence and social coherence creates harmony within and with other people and the world around you. It's up to each of us to create that within.
And the strength of the heart that can hold all pain and all past and all.
Yes, the heart can heal any pain and suffering. And I've done it, you've done it, millions of people do it every day. Okay, and many people, in every leadership position have had great pain and suffering and losing loved ones. There's great capacity within our hearts that have not been tapped yet. And I think that's a summary. We need to tap it. And through our heart comes the generosity of spirit, caring, compassion, everything. That's the direction we're going. That's the direction the world is moving. It's up to each of us to jump on that bandwagon